A big scandal broke out recently on late-night TV. It was about carpool karaoke. Anybody familiar with carpool karaoke? So carpool karaoke is this program featuring James Corden. He's the host of the Late Late Show. And in carpool karaoke, he's driving his car, presumably to work, and he has seated in the passenger seat next to him either a celebrity and or quite often it's a pop star. And so they have a little conversation, they banter, and then they start singing, and it's just great fun. It's really fun to watch. When you see it on TV, it looks like this. It's just great, right? And by the way, this is the best of them, so look it up. Paul McCartney's absolutely wonderful. One day, someone who was observing from a distance saw the show being filmed, and in the car were James Corden and Justin Bieber. It didn't look like that. It looked like this. James Corden was not driving the car, and in fact, the car was being towed. Well, the person who saw this, of course, posted it on social media, and what followed was just explosive outrage. Explosive outrage over this idea that he wasn't really driving the car all this time. People unleashed on him, on the program, on the network, on liars in general, on life in general. One woman even said, "This is why I don't trust men." Seriously. So finally, James Corden went on his program, and he was completely transparent. And he explained, he said that 95% of the time, I am driving the car. In 5% of the cases, which included this particular episode with Justin Bieber, we have the car towed because we have something planned for the broadcast that it wouldn't be safe if I were driving. Like maybe they do a costume change or they're dancing or something like that. And then he showed the 5 times that they have actually had the car towed, and then these long list of scrolling names, all the times that he has actually driven the car. Well, this was kind of a funny thing, right? But it was also very revealing. His explanation of the truth, posted on YouTube, got 19 million views. I find that very revealing. What that tells me is that we're all pretty tightly wound right now and hypersensitive to anything that smacks of deception. You can go ahead. So every day we face, it seems like a new bombardment of rhetoric around fake news and alternative facts and competing ideas of what's true and what isn't, different views of reality, conspiracy theories. It's just kind of crazy making. It's like living in chaos. So in that situation, we would do well to follow the lead of Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore, who at a different time in his life was really feeling overwhelmed by the different ideas about, in this case, spiritual truth. And Charles Fillmore wrote, "I said to myself, I will go to headquarters." Headquarters, of course, meaning he would go to God. In the middle of all this, he said in this Babel, B-A-B-E-L, meaning bedlam, just discord, and all this noise, I will go to headquarters, I'll go to God. And he did that through prayer and meditation. Of course, we can also go to headquarters through prayer and meditation. It's a wonderful way to come back into alignment. And we can also do it by remembering and reconnecting with the teachings of our way shower, Jesus. Now, what did Jesus have to say about truth? Well, he had a lot to say about it, and here are a few of the particular scripture passages that stand out. First of all, he said, as we know, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And then a little later on in John, he says, for this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. So we're thinking, okay, right after that passage, not yet, thank you. Right after that passage is when Pontius Pilate asks him, Well, what is truth? And he doesn't give Jesus a chance to answer. And of course, we might wonder the same thing, right? What is he talking about here when he talks about truth? And he says this is what he came to testify about. Well, of course, he wanted us to be honest. He wanted us to live moral lives and to tell the truth in our daily life. But when he talks about this higher truth, it really does seem like something bigger than that, almost another dimension, another level of being. And surely an important aspect of this other level of being is to know the truth about ourselves. And so with that in mind, he offers teachings to help us know the truth about ourselves, and this is one of them. He says, do not judge so that you may not be judged. It's basically telling, come to know yourself. One way to do that is to stop blaming and criticizing and projecting onto other people. Do not judge so that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you make, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. Remember that thing that you were pointing? You got fingers pointing back at you. Then he says, why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye, while the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. So notice that he's not saying in here that we shouldn't notice when there's wrongdoing. He's not saying we shouldn't notice when there's an injustice even. He's just saying before you become fixated on other people's faults, do something about your own. Clean up your own house, if you will. Or what we might say today, stop projecting your shadow onto other people. So who here is familiar with the shadow? Our shadow is who we really don't want to be. Our shadow is, like, we just would love it if that just wasn't there at all. Our shadow is all these aspects of ourselves, these traits that we try to deny and hide because we're either ashamed or we're embarrassed. We're afraid if they're known that we won't be loved, or possibly that we won't even love ourselves. And so we push them down. It could be traits like anger, or judgment, or pettiness, or bullying, or envy, or greed, or lust, all those 7 deadly sins, all those things. On some level, we know they're within us, and so we push them down so that we don't have to face them. But it's just like a beach ball. You may push it down under the water, but what happens? It pops up somewhere else. And when we're denying or repressing these traits that we don't want to face within us, often they pop up with a vengeance in our condemnation of others. This is what Jesus is talking about here. He's saying, take stock of what's going on. Heal what needs to be healed inside of you. Pay attention to it. Be aware of it so that you're not then projecting that out to others. In his own way, he's talking about the shadow. Richard Rohr writes, Jesus' phrase for the denied shadow is the log in your eye, which you instead notice as the splinter in your brother's eye. If you do not recognize and name your own log, it is inevitable that you will project and hate it elsewhere. Well, now you may be thinking, what log? What shadow? I don't have a shadow. Okay. Take this in. From Debbie Ford, who wrote a book about and a film about the shadow effect. The shadow can be seen in the person in our family whom we judge the most, the public official whose behavior we condemn, the celebrity who causes us to shake our head in disgust. If we understand this correctly, we come to the startling and sometimes sobering realization, take a deep breath, that our shadow is everything that annoys, horrifies, or disgusts us about other people or about ourselves. We don't have to look far to discover that we are usually doing the exact thing we are judging others for. It may show up in a completely different way, yet the driving force behind our behavior is, in fact, the same. This isn't fun, is it? And you may be thinking, do I really have to do this? Do I really have to face this? Jesus says yes. He says yes, because as long as you're denying these aspects of yourself, you can't see clearly. See, you're kind of on the run in your own life. You can't see clearly. You have a log in your own eye. You must do something to clear that log. You see, and he's not saying that we're bad because we have a log in our eye. We all have it. He's not trying to take us down a notch like, hey, don't get too full of yourselves. That's not Jesus. He's talking about paying attention to it so we can come back into our wholeness. He's really saying, get real with yourself. Face these aspects of you that you're hiding or denying. Accept your past mistakes. Heal your old wounds. Acknowledge that these are parts of you, because actually when you acknowledge, when you bring in that awareness, it actually begins to diffuse the power of them. It's when we're stuffing them down, we're exerting all that energy, that they begin to show up in our lives in destructive ways. When we bring in the light of awareness, it's like bringing in love and compassion and forgiveness for ourselves. And as we do that, as we turn our attention to these parts of us, we may actually find that they have value. And there's another way of using them in our lives that can be incredibly valuable. You know, used in a mindful way, they can serve a good purpose. We can actually turn that whole equation and use them productively. Debbie Ford writes, if the villain inside you is angry, you must forgive this part of yourself and consider the possibility that anger is exactly what you need to fight against some injustice or oppression, or to get you out of an abusive situation and back on track to creating an amazing life. You see, the anger isn't the problem. It's what we're doing with the anger. Now, when I read this quote, I have to say it really spoke to me. It spoke to me in a very personal way, because a couple of weeks ago, I was in a conversation with someone, and in that conversation, I began to feel personally attacked. Whether that's what was really happening or not, that's how it felt to me. And I found myself getting really angry. My heart started racing. My voice started shaking. And the first thing I felt was ashamed. Oh my gosh, look how angry I am. You know, we ministers are not supposed to get angry. You know, as you know, we are elevated beings. So I had to deal with this because I obviously was angry. It brought my awareness to that, and rather than condemning myself for it, began an internal conversation. Okay, I'm angry. Sometimes I get angry. I'm human. And that's okay. That's okay. Now, how can I channel that anger to some productive use to improve my life or the world? You see the difference? You're not denying that it's a part of you. You're not denying that it's seated in you, but by bringing in the light of awareness, you're actually capitalizing on it to do good. Marianne Williamson, a great spiritual teacher, says that we all have within us a presence, which she calls the illuminator. I love that, the illuminator. It's really the presence of God, but I like this term, the illuminator. She says the illuminator is the bridge between our shadow self and our light. Anytime, she says, that you feel lost in darkness, you can call on that illuminator within to help distinguish between truth and illusion, you see, to bring you out of the darkness and into the light. And one way of doing this, she says, is to simply say, I am willing to see this differently. Or if you don't want to word it that way, you can certainly word it as a request. Some people prefer that. God, please help me see this differently. Help me be released from what I am telling myself here. Ask and you shall receive. So one sure way of telling whether we are aligned with truth is how we feel in our bodies. Even just becoming bodily aware can tell you sort of what's going on for you. If you're aligned with truth, if you're living and acting from your place of integrity within, if you've addressed these aspects of yourself and you're clear and you're living on purpose, you know how that feels. You feel whole inside. You feel assured. You feel peace. You may even feel a sense of passion and purpose. But when we're living in untruth, when we're lying to ourselves, when we're projecting our shadow onto other people, or when we're believing, as we say in unity, that we are separate from each other and from God, we feel that also in our bodies, don't we? We feel it as anxiety and stress and fear and maybe depression. We may feel this overwhelming urge to fight or flee. We're out of alignment. We've stepped away from the truth. But we can bring ourselves back to that truth, and when we do, we come back to our own center. Jesus never put it out. I kind of wish he had, but he didn't actually say, okay, here is the truth, people. But I do believe these were aspects of it, the truth. That you are deeply loved and cherished, no matter what. No matter what you've stuffed down, no matter what you've been through or what you've done. You're loved. We are all works in progress, and that's okay. And we all also, at our purest level of essence, have within us this brilliant light of God. And to this light, the darkness is as nothing. You see, knowing this and claiming this, we can begin to live fearlessly. We can begin to live as fully expressed human beings who honestly can change the world. So here's an example of one such human being. Her name is Edith Eva Eger. Anybody heard of her? When Edith was 16 years old, she was sent to Auschwitz. And there she endured some of the most terrible circumstances we could ever imagine. She was separated from her father. She saw her mother go off to the gas chambers. Every day she would witness others in that concentration camp electrocuting themselves on the barbed wire fence. And when she would go during the day to take a shower, she never knew if water was going to come out or gas. You see, she was experiencing all of this, and we hear this and we think, well, we certainly would understand someone being filled with rage and hate and anger. She didn't take that route. Instead, she integrated her experience, and she consciously chose a way of being that would allow her to not only live and survive through that, but thrive and go on to be a leading advocate in the world today for peace. It was all through the choices that she made, and she actually has a book out called The Choice. And here's how she applied it. When Edith was asked to dance for Dr. Joseph Mengele, you know who that is, the angel of death, responsible for the torture and murder of millions of Jews. When she was asked to dance for him, she closed her eyes and chose to imagine the music was Tchaikovsky, and she was dancing in Budapest to Romeo and Juliet. When the German soldiers took her blood twice a week, telling her it would help them win the war, she chose to tell herself, I'm a pacifist, I'm a ballerina. My blood will never help them win the war. She soothed the pain of her mother's death by repeating to herself over and over, the spirit never dies. She refused to let any outer occurrence kill her spirit. If I survive today, she told herself, I will be free tomorrow. Edith is now 92 years old. She's a renowned, compassionate clinical psychologist. She's appeared on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah. And she knows that by integrating the darkness of her experience, rather than succumbing to hate, She exacted the sweetest revenge on Hitler. She said, "I wouldn't hold on to any anger toward Hitler. If I did, he would win the war, because I would still be carrying him around with me wherever I went." You see, like Edith, we have the power of the light within us to overcome any darkness. Realizing that when we accept what is, she had to accept what was to survive that experience. When we accept what is on the outer as well as within us, it doesn't mean defeat. It actually is a catalyst for consolidating our power and using it for good in the world, for standing up and being that light of truth. We are living in such difficult and divisive times, but they're also rife with opportunity. We, more than ever, I believe, are being called to rise up in consciousness, to transmute darkness into light, to heal ourselves so that we can be a healing agent for others. Never doubting, never forgetting that the light is stronger and more powerful than any darkness, and that the truth will set us free. Let's turn now to our meditation. I invite you to close your eyes, breathing in deeply. And release and let go. One more time. A nice deep breath in. And as you release, let go of any cares or concerns. Let them drop from your shoulders. Breathe into peace. Feel this palpable sense of the love of God within you, this beautiful light and love, enfolding you, supporting you, reassuring you. Know that this presence is the heart of your very being, the illuminator, the light, the clarity, the truth. I invite you to breathe into this awareness, allowing this light to shine into every corner of your psyche, your subconscious, any place where you might have hidden something away. Let the light of love touch the hurt places, the frightening places, areas of embarrassment or even shame. Feel the light permeating all of it. And listen for what is yours to do in healing and going forward in the silence. We give thanks for this clarity growing within us. We Give thanks for this spiritual process of transmuting and changing what needs to be changed. We know that as we remove the log from our own eye, we will see clearly. And even as we see injustice, even as we see harm happening, we'll not be controlled by it, but rather centered and strong and ready to go forward to make a difference. Thank you, God, for this knowing. Thank you, Jesus. And so it is. Amen.